Okay, great.
Two.
This is at ALAC, a private event, just outside the convention center.
Thank you all so very much for being with us today. My name is Cristobal Alex. I'm the president of the Latino Victory Fund. We are so excited about this evening's discussion with Senator Bernie Sanders and several of our very, very special guests. I want to start off very quickly by first acknowledging a few of our representatives that are here. Representative Mark Cardenas, Supervisor Steve Gallardo. I want to acknowledge, because this is a very special event, we decided to keep this a small event. As you know, the Senator has been all over the country drawing crowds and the tens of thousands of people, and we saw this as an opportunity, as the Latino Victory Fund. This is our first conversation with the presidential candidate, and we wanted it to be a conversation, and so we decided to keep it small and invite Latino leaders from across the country, including Tom Saenz, the president of MALDEF, who is with us, and Cesar Vargas from the Dream Action Coalition, Antonio Gonzalez, and Arturo Carmona, my boss to my right here, Leopoldo Martinez, and Lorraine Ramirez. Thank you all. And we're here in this beautiful place, ALAC, which is, as you can see, a beautiful Latino center of the arts, and we are honored to be here. And we thought if we're going to have a conversation about the future of the country and about Latino values and priorities, we needed to do it in the heart of the Latino community here in Arizona. So without further ado, let me bring up Congressman, where are you? Come on up, please. Congressman Ruben Gallego, a leading voice for progressive Latino values.
A little too tall, I gotta bring it down. First of all, everybody, welcome to really what is the heart of the Latino community in Arizona, and that is not an exaggeration. Many years ago, I was a young staffer for Councilman Nowakowski, one of our first Latino elected city council members in about 20, 30 years. And some community leaders, led by Erlinda, Cisco and Ruben Hernandez, may God rest his soul, came and spoke to us about how, you know, the heart of the Latino community did not exist because we had nowhere we can talk about our arts, our culture, our people. And there was no way for us to express that. And they had this idea that we should take this space that you're in right now and create that environment. And with a lot of help from a lot of other community leaders, many of them are in the room right now, 8 years ago, I think it was, we started this center right here. And this center became so important for many reasons, but for many reasons, right up to SB 1070, a lot of the resistance movements that started around that time were either planned here or celebrated here, and something that I don't think would have existed without the foresight of our Latino arts community. So I want to thank them, and please let's give them a thank for them for being so forthright to have us. Thank you everyone for coming here to Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. I know that was not an easy decision for a lot of people, but I want to tell you why you should be proud to be here in Phoenix. And some of you guys may have heard me say this earlier, but when things were bad, it was Phoenix that fought back. When things were looking grim and Sheriff Joe Arpaio was pushing our Latino communities, violating our civil rights, separating our families, it was Phoenicians of all stripes that got together and fought back. It was city council members that pushed back, it was mayors that pushed back, it was our union that pushed back. It all started here. And it felt very difficult for us when most of the country abandoned us and let us go and let us fight on our own. So it's a pleasure to have you guys back. But for no doubt, if you have any doubt at all, if you thought that we laid down our arms, if you thought that we did not punch back for every punch that they gave our community, you were wrong. Phoenix fought when no one else wanted to fight. Phoenicians were the ones that fought Sheriff Joe Arpaio. This guy, where's Gallardo? County Supervisor Gallardo. We're fighting Church or Ohio. We had 80% name ID. 80% name ID. When people were telling us this man was untouchable, there was young men and women that were marching in the streets and said that this was unjust, but nobody would listen to us. Phoenix is a city of fighters. So please, when you go back, when you tell them about how great this town is, tell them about our great Mexican food, but tell them no matter what, this city, and it's really good, that this city, above all, is the city that fought for the dignity of every person in this state. I would really appreciate that. Lastly, thank you for supporting such a great and important organization, Latino Victory Fund. It's something that I know, and any other candidate Latino understands this. It is difficult to run for office. It is difficult to run for office when you look out there and you don't have the support that you need. It's hard to go and ask for that money. But to have an organization that is squarely behind you, that's out there to promote and advance and get more Latinos and, more importantly, Latinas elected. It makes every day on that campaign trail a bit easier. So I really want to thank everybody from Latino Victory Fund for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know you guys have a hard job, but it is very worthwhile. And with that, Mr. Agumay, it's off to you're in charge here.
So thank you. And you talked about leaders and Latinas, and a rising star, really a rock star Latina in our community is the speaker, Melissa Margueretto. Let's join her, please. Welcome her.
I'll be very brief, but I wanted to really thank all of you for being here. I want to thank Cristóbal for his leadership and the Latino Victory Project for all that it is doing to really mobilize and energize the Latino communities throughout this nation and really demonstrate and leverage the power that we have in our vote and to work to get others elected. And a lot of that work really starts at local municipal levels. As a New York City Council speaker in the city of 8.5 million, really I got elected to really fulfill a progressive vision. And we're doing a lot of great work that we definitely would like to see expanded to other parts of this country. So we have the largest municipal ID program in the country, which we were here a couple of months ago to talk with some of the leaders here about the municipal ID program you're trying to implement. We did a public-private partnership to make sure that every unaccompanied minor was receiving legal services and legal support instead of going into courts alone. And we've done a lot of other great work, participatory budgeting. We really want to engage communities at the grassroots and to see more Latinos elected, and Latinas in particular, which is something that is very dear to me. So I wanted to come and be here to support. This is the second event I do. I plan to be much more involved with the Latino Victory Project in the months to come and to really ensure that our community is very visible. The last thing I'll say, since I know Senator Sanders is going to speak, I just told him privately, I am Puerto Riqueña and born and raised to the age of 18, and Puerto Rico is going through a very difficult crisis right now economically. He has stood strong and said some really encouraging words that I hope others will do as well. We need to build a united Latino agenda, which is about immigration reform, and we've done some great work in New York City, but also building solidarity across Latino communities throughout. So I'm really glad to be here and continue to work to build this great agenda. Thank you very much.
Senator.
Thank you very much for inviting me to say a few words. Let me introduce my wife, Jane.
Hi.
And my daughter, Heather, who lives here in Arizona, and her husband, Mark. And to say thank you for the work you're doing and for your extraordinary courage under very difficult circumstances. A couple of summers ago, I had an interesting experience. My father was born in Poland and came to this country at the age of 17. Couldn't speak the language, had no money. My wife and I and my brother went back to a small town in Poland, and it made me reflect on how incredibly courageous somebody at the age of 17 was to come to a country where you couldn't speak the language and you had no money. And that, I think, reflects a lot of your families and the courage shown by many people in this community. let me just touch on two broad issues. First of all, clearly, at a time when we have 11 million undocumented people in this country, the time is now to bring those men and women out of the shadows and provide a path to citizenship. And I think all of us have got to stand up and reject the ugly rhetoric and the racist remarks that we've been hearing recently. We can have an honest debate about how you go forward, but to attacking a community in ugly ways is unacceptable, and we all have got to stand and reject that. It makes me very sad when we think about racism, and God only knows, I'm not a psychiatrist, what motivates people to hate people because of the color of their skin or the country that they come from. But it has plagued this country since its inception, and what we did to the Native Americans and the horrors of slavery and the attacks against almost every ethnic group that came into this country. One would hope that by the year 2015 we could overcome that and judge people based, as Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us, based on their character and not their color of their skin or their ethnicity. I voted for the immigration reform bill. Nobody thinks that it was all that it should be. It provides a complicated and long path to citizenship, and that's the good news. The bad news is that the path is somewhat torturous, takes too long. Some of it is dependent, as it should not be, on the construction of a wall and the results of that. I am a strong supporter of the DREAM Act, and I gather we have some dreamers here, do we? Okay, good. And we welcome you as you know, people who have grown up in this country and are as proud of this country as anybody else. And I think we also understand that there is something wrong when this country, which prides itself on family values, has been doing so much in recent years to separate families. And that is not acceptable. As all of you know, we passed a bill in the Senate, not as good as it could be. The House has yet to act, and I don't know, I wish I could tell you. I guess we have a congressman here, maybe he'll give us some better understanding. I don't know when the House is going to act. I don't know if they, in fact, will act. And I think it is sad to say that attacking immigrants seems to be an important part of the Republican Party's platform right now, and that is unfortunate. I think the president did the right thing by understanding that if we could not get legislation done to go forward with executive orders and executive action, I think we have got to continue that process. My view is, as I said, I don't want to see families separated. I don't want to see the parents of dreamers faced with the possibility of deportation. That's not what this country should be about. When we talk about the Latino community, we are also talking about people who are struggling by and large economically. We are talking about a fact that just recently came to my attention, which should be of concern to every person in this room. And that is, if you look at youth unemployment in terms of people who have no jobs, who are working part-time when they want to work full-time, white youth unemployment is 33% for our young kids. Latino youth unemployment is 36%. African-American youth unemployment is 51%. And that is not unrelated to the fact that we have more people in this country in jail than any other country. So it seems to me that it makes a lot more sense to invest in jobs and education rather than jails and incarceration. All right, and that's what we got to do. And I very much applaud the president for visiting the federal penitentiary, I think it was in Oklahoma, to call attention to the fact that we have more people in jail than any other country on earth, despite the fact that China is 3 or 4 times our size. So I look forward to working with you, to understanding more about what's going on here in Arizona, in particular, to making sure that hardworking people, the other point that I want to make, which is not made often enough, people talk about, quote unquote, illegal immigration. Let me tell you a story. 2007, I got involved in an issue in Immokalee, Florida. Anybody know where Immokalee, Florida is? You know what goes on in Immokalee? That's where they grow the tomatoes that are used by McDonald's and Burger King. You know about that? I went down there. I was asked to go down there, and I went down there. On the day that I went down there, just coincidentally, the U.S. attorney had brought charges against the contractor on what basis? On slavery. There were people who were literally being held against their will to work in those fields. And what I discovered when I was down there is what exploitation is about when you have no legal status. You are worked long hours, you are underpaid, the housing conditions are deplorable. And we worked very hard with the organization there representing those workers, and actually we made some progress in improving the wages that they received. But let's be very clear. When you have undocumented workers being exploited, it not only impacts them, it impacts every worker in America, because that's part of the race to the bottom. And that's one of the reasons that all of us, everybody concerned about workers in America, should support legal status for undocumented workers and a path to citizenship. It's good for everybody. And the other point that I would make, which nobody talks about or is not talked about enough, we talk about illegal immigrants. What about illegal employers? Yeah. All right? Everybody in the world in Immokalee knows exactly what's going on. And that's true all over this country. But officials for years, my good conservative Republican friends, law and order guys, turned their backs. Why did they turn their backs? Because it is easier to exploit people when they have no legal status. So when we talk about illegality, let's look at the employers who are ripping off people right and left and cheating them out of wages. Let's talk about that as well. Let me just conclude again by complimenting you and applauding you for your courage. It seems like every immigrant group that comes to America has to deal with this stuff. We had hoped we would advance a little bit, but that's the case. So thank you very much for your courage. Count me in as somebody who wants to work with you side by side. I'd love to, I don't know what the formula is now, would love to hear some of the issues that are most uppermost on your minds. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much for your leadership, but for increasing the visibility of the issues most important to the Latino community. At Latino Victory Fund, we believe a couple of things are going to happen in 2016. The first is we think we're going to make history by helping elect the first Latina U.S. Senator in the country. We expect to do that with Speaker Melissa Mark-Libereto's help and with all of your help. A second thing we want to do with John Laredo's help is make sure that Arizona becomes a purple state. The demographics are here, the hard work is here, and we are on the cusp of changing Arizona history, and with it, the nation's history forever. And the final and third thing that we expect to see happen is that the road to the White House will be paved by the Latino community. And you spoke very eloquently about some of the most important issues facing our community, and really about Latino values, which are American values. And many in the room here have questions around Latino values and Latino priorities. And we have just a few minutes to open this up with folks. And we're going to start with Jennifer Allen here from the League of Conservation Voters.
Hi, Senator. Thank you so much for being here and for your words. I think, as you saw this morning, Black Lives Matter. There's a visceral urgency around dealing with racial justice in this country. As an Arizonan, as a Latina who has worked here for decades, in a state that has passed some horrendous legislation that marginalizes our community and dehumanizes our community, I think you show tremendous leadership around addressing economic inequality and restoring our democracy. I think what I would like to know is what role, how do you see addressing racial justice into this?
Come on, okay, thank you. Okay. This is what I want some help on this. Let me be very honest. Here's the issue. What I have focused on, I want help here, I want people to talk about this. What I have always believed in my life, coming from a family that did not have a lot of money, is that what we have got to do as a society is make sure that all of our people have a decent standing. that means it pains me when I tell you that 36% of young Hispanic kids are unemployed. What happens to those kids? Get into drugs, they get into gangs, they get into trouble, right? I want to deal with that issue. I want some ideas. As somebody who was arrested 50 years ago, fighting for civil rights, trying to desegregate schools in Chicago, who spent his whole life fighting against racism. Well, what's your ideas? What do you think we can do? What can we do? I applauded the president for going to the jail. I think that was to talk about a criminal justice system which is out of control right now. Let me throw out to you, tell me, why is it that we have more people in jail in America than a communist authoritarian country like China? Who wants to help me out on that?
Private prison.
Yeah.
Money.
Money making in prisons is a reason, yes. What about drugs? Is that an important fact? Are people being arrested and sent away for jail
For petty
And here's the thing.
Mental illness.
Very good. Mental illness is a huge thing. Here's the thing about crime. If you get arrested for dealing a small amount of marijuana, you know what? Your life is radically altered because you're going to have that arrest record around your shoulders when you go out and get a job. And people are not going to hire you. And you're going to say, if I can't get a job, I'm going to do something else. And then you're going to get to jail and you're going to learn how to be a better criminal. All right? So those are some of the issues that we've got to focus on. I think they get back, to my mind, and somebody argue with me if you think I'm wrong, a lot to economics. Because I think if kids have an education and have an opportunity, there's less likelihood of them to get into trouble. All right, tell me about how do we best deal with racism in America? I'm asking questions here.
Change the leadership.
All right. Here's what you got. I want to throw this out here because I don't know much about Arizona. This is what drives me nuts. I personally don't mind and expect to be attacked by what I call the billionaire class. You know, I want them to pay more in taxes. I want to change their trade policies and all that stuff. I don't mind that. But I want you to answer a very difficult question. Tell me what you think. What I see politically that goes on. If I'm a right-wing Republican, which is what Republicans are right now, what do I believe? What am I running on? I'm running on anti-immigration. I'm running on guns. I'm running on homophobia. Is that a pretty good platform? Is that my platform? Okay. And a lot of white working class people respond to that. Yes? All right. So you got white working class people who can't afford to send their kids to college. They don't have any health care. They're making $9 an hour, and they're being motivated because they're supposed to hate you. How do we deal with that? How do we make sure that people are on the same side and not being divided by these issues? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Because I think that is the $64. This is nothing new. Mississippi, as you know, 50 years ago, the white workers in Mississippi were the lowest paid white workers in America. And yet, why did they support their oppressors? Why? Tell me why.
Divide and conquer.
Exactly. Because they could drink at a white water fountain and a black could not. So they were the lowest paid people, but there was somebody else under them. How do we bring people together to say that a white working class's enemy is not you, maybe it's the person who's paying them $8 an hour or not providing health care or sending his job someplace. Is that right? How do we do that? Are we thinking about that? Is that an issue that we think? Look, at the end of the day, on every single issue, how many people here think we should raise the minimum wage?
Yeah.
All right, 15. How many people believe in pay equity for women workers?
Yep.
How many people think we need a jobs program to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure? How many people think that public colleges and public universities should be tuition free? You know what? It's not just the people in this room. That is what the vast majority of the American people believe. And yet, we keep voting for people who disagree with us on every one of those issues, and on top of that want to give huge tax breaks to billionaires and cut back on nutrition programs and on education programs. How do we deal with that? Who has ideas? Because if we don't know how to deal with that, we're going to fail.
I think you need to re-engage people at a basic human level, right? It's about reminding people that as human beings we have the same basic needs and desires and wants.
All right, how do we do that? Are some of you in unions? You got any trade unionists here? Okay, unions do a good job. In a half hour, I'm going to be introduced to 10,000 people by a Latina from the CWA, I think. All right. How else do we do that? How do we tell people, just your point, that we are all on the same side? We all need education. We all need health care. Do we not?
I think part of it is empowering people to understand that their voice actually counts. I feel like our country is so, especially in a state like this, people are so kind of beat down at this point. It's re-inspiring people to know that their voice actually matters.
Good. Other thoughts?
Especially in...
Yes, sir.
Hey, Senator, how are you? My name is Cesar Vargas. I'm from New York, James Madison High School
You're
graduate.
My high school.
And I live on Staten Island, and New York just opened the doors for me to be the first undocumented immigrant to practice law in New York. And I think one of the key points of, I don't think we expect to resolve these difficult, complex policy questions. But one of the questions that was related to this is having an executive who will flex full executive White House power on immigration. We want to make sure that President Bernie Sanders is able to say, you know what, we cannot wait for Congress. I'm going to take full executive action.
Bernie Sanders will do that.
And on education and everything. So I think that's the key. A robust executive
I think Obama
branch.
has done something, and I think we should do a lot more. Okay? But at the end of the day, as you know, legislation is far more significant because I pass an executive order that can be undone by the next guy. Yes, that's the case. Yeah.
With all the obstacles Obama has working with others, it seems like they keep attacking him. What's your approach going in?
Good question. All right, I'm going to give you a radical answer. You ready for a radical answer? Got any radicals here? Yeah. All right. Here's the answer. Let me be terribly... if you don't want to be in the spotlight anymore, that's all right. All right, let me tell you what I think, because that's a great question. I was in the House for 16 years. I've been in the Senate for 9 years. And let me tell you this. No president, not the smartest, best human being in the world, can do what you want him or her to do, given the current nature of political power in America today. You understand what I'm saying? So I'd be lying to you. If I said to you, vote for me, and I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and E, I would be lying to you. But how do you do it? How you do it is create a mass political movement, which is what you are doing right here, of people who actually understand what's going on in this country and are prepared to actively participate in the political process. All right? You want to give you an example, just a few examples. I believe, the Republicans believe, we should cut Social Security. I think that's an ugly idea, because you've got millions of seniors trying to get by on $10,000, $12,000 a year. You know what happened a few years ago? We began working with senior organizations all over the country. The agenda now is how do we expand Social Security. It happened because millions of people came together. You're seeing the minimum wage go up in cities and states all over this country. You think that came from Washington? It came from a grassroots movement of people. The progress that you are making, so that a majority of the American people now believe, as you know, that there must be a path to citizenship. That wasn't always the case. You made that happen. What we have got to do is continue that struggle, bring people together around a progressive agenda, which includes immigration reform, includes raising the minimum wage, includes a national health care program guaranteeing health care to all people, includes making college affordable, etc., etc. Those are ideas that are supported by the American people. And our job is to bring them together. And when that happens, then we can pass that legislation. But right now, the big money interests are too powerful. The lobbyists, we run campaigns. You know what Citizens United is? Yes. Citizens United means that billionaires can buy elections, which is why we have to overturn that constitutional amendment.
Final question.
So I want to start saying three names: Jose de Jesus, Sandra Bland, and Kendra Chapman. And we're talking about economic class and how that can change a lot of things and how opening those doors for people. The problem is, part of the problem is institutionalized racism, where even if the doors are open, we're not being allowed in. So what are we doing about that?
All right, tell me, come up, can you come up? I know, I always embarrass you. You ask me a question, now you got it. All right, go into that and give me some examples of what you do.
So even with, we were talking about marijuana and having that and not how that can get people in jail.
Yes.
It gets certain people in jail,
Yes.
like a white majority for a certain time,
Yes.
others.
Absolutely correct. Okay. And that requires, that's part of the criminal justice reform that we have got to bring about. I have serious questions about anybody going to jail for marijuana, but your point is minorities go to jail and pay a heavier price than whites. Yes? You're right. You're right. So we got to deal with both issues. The broader issue of drugs in general and the discrimination which currently exists. You're absolutely right. Okay? And that is something we are talking about it. We're talking about it through criminal justice reform, which in fact says, in my state now, if you're caught with a small amount of marijuana, it's a civil fine. It's a civil fine. There are people, and we should have that discussion as a nation. I'm kind of torn on it. There's pluses and minuses. Should we legalize marijuana?
Yes.
Yes.
Raise your hand. How many people here think we should legalize marijuana?
Tax it too.
All right. How many people don't? All right. The sentiment, yeah. Well, that would deal with that issue. Yes.
So I agree with that. And the criminal is just part of it. We're talking education, we're talking jobs, we're talking housing. I think we need to. So the reform with prison reform is one thing, but we're talking institutionalized racism all over.
All right. How do we? All right. This is a look. I wish I could tell you that I had a magical formula on how to end racism. It's gone on in this country from before it was America. I mean, that's what slavery was about. That was colonialism was about. You know, I think, getting back to the point that somebody over there made, right here, I mean, we have got to figure out ways. One of the things we do is one group of people doesn't talk to another group of people, and all kinds of stereotypes develop. How do we break through those stereotypes? How do we make sure that everybody in America understands we all have the same dreams, do we not? Yeah. The same love of family, the same needs for economic benefits. So, you know, and having said that, let me just say this to you, because I'm older than you, I think. I think I may be older than you. All right. You're impatient, and you should be impatient. But if we were standing here 30 years ago, and somebody said, you know, I think in 2008, the United States of America will elect an African-American president. You know what people in this room would have said? They would have said, you are crazy. That will never happen because America has too much racist baggage. It happened. So I guess you're right to be impatient, but we have made progress in this country. Not enough. Your question about what's going on in terms of minorities being shot by police, unacceptable, horrendous. But you know what? That has gone on for decades. The good news is you're beginning to see it, and we're beginning to talk about it. It's not new news. Anyone think this is new? You're wrong. All right? So I think to answer your question, we have made some progress. And we just got to figure out the goal, I think, that we all share. I would hope that all decent-minded Americans share, is how do we create a society which ends discrimination? Ends discrimination against people of color, people who have a different language, people whose sexual orientation is different, people who are women and not men, and all that stuff. We are making some progress, but we've got to accelerate that progress. All right, let me just conclude. I often talk in my speeches, and I think we're going to have some 10,000 people coming across the street, and I'll say it again tonight. I hope some of you guys will be there. I talk about the need for people to be actively involved in the political process. Democracy is not a spectator sport. I will tell you without any hesitation that the people who have the money are very, very active in the political process. The Koch brothers, who want to end every federal program that helps working people, are going to put $900 million into this campaign cycle. They are very active politically. I applaud you very much for standing up for your rights, for your courage, for encouraging other people to get involved in the political process. Thank you for what you're doing, and I very much look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Que viva Bernie! Que viva Bernie!